All right, guys, welcome back to another interview. And you guys might recognize Ronan here with RORO Designs. And you're Canada?
Yeah, man.
Up
Hey,
in
everybody.
Canada.
Yeah,
So-
Ontario, Canada. I'm about 3 hours away from Michigan and about an hour 30 drive from Niagara Falls.
How's the wet? Ooh, so you're in kind of a nice little area up there.
Yeah. So about an hour drive away from Toronto, which is like the major big city.
Yep. We've sold a couple electron guns up into Canada.
Nice.
You guys are pricey up there, like just to get stuff up there is insane.
Oh, it's a killer.
We'll have to talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
We usually like to start these off, just kind of give us a background of what got you into powder coating, how long you've been doing it, and then maybe a quick overall view of like what your shop looks like, what equipment you're using.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, everybody, I'm Ronan. I'm the owner-operator of RORO Designs. I'm a one-man run shop. I do absolutely everything myself. I outsource a few things here and there, but we can get into that later. But I got into powder coating in 2012, maybe 2013. I got hired at another shop, and I worked there for about 3 years. I left to go pursue something else. And in that time, I had millions of messages, calls. Hey, I want you to do my stuff. And I, would reply to everyone saying, I don't work there anymore, but they're still operating. Go ahead. And everyone the messages kept rolling in. So I said, well, I kind of like doing it. I'll just open a shop. And I've been at my own place now for 9 years.
Wow.
Maybe 8. Yeah, 8 or 9 years.
Yeah. So when you worked for that other company, did they do custom work then, or did
they did a bit of both? So they're originally a media blasting company, so they would offer walnut shell blasting and steel shot blasting and glass bead blasting, and they had powder coating on the side as well. So it was a father-son relationship. The dad kind of handled all the blasting side, and the son took care of all the powder coat side. So I got hired to take over the powder coat side. So we kind of did a bit of both. There's a lot of industrial, did a bunch of Cerakote as well, but it was mainly, valve covers, brakes, wheels was like the main.
So that's kind of where you learn that art, because that's your main thing. When you see your videos or photos up on social media, it's all custom, one-off.
So without getting too crazy into my background, I'm going to plug another podcast I was on. If people want to go search that, I have a 2-hour podcast where I deep dive intensely into my whole background and everything. But before I got hired at that shop, I already had quite a big following myself through the JDM scene. I was really into Honda. Well, I'm still into Hondas, but through the Honda scene, I was doing paint and auto body, metal polishing, some custom work. Like I would install like fender marker lights and just all, a lip kit on cars. I was doing stuff like that as well as modifying my own cars. So I got a huge following from that. And then when I got hired at the powder coat shop, I kind of brought a lot of customers to that shop through myself. So I already had like a big name. So when I left to go do my own thing, the way I kind of relate it is a tattoo artist or, someone who does hair. If they move shop, you're going to go to just them. It doesn't matter what shop they're at. So that's kind of how it worked, is when I left, a bunch of people went, well, I'm going to go wherever you're at.
Right.
And I've been solid busy, booked for months,
And the key to being booked for months is that those people want to wait for those months.
So I typically book 2 months in advance, close my books, don't take on any new work. And then once 2 months is up, I make a post, say, hey, my books are now open, booking for these 2 months, and within hours I'm booked for 2 months, close my books again.
That's nuts.
I mean, one guy can only do so much.
Right. Do you have any aspirations to grow with more people, or do you think you'll always just be a one?
So this is hot tea. I was actually talking about this with a few people last night, and my wife is I've literally never mentioned about 3 years ago, I was almost ready to turnkey sell my business and upgrade. So to deep dive into that pretty good was my shop is 1,350 square feet. It's tiny. I'd probably say 400, maybe 500 square feet of that is bathroom, office, compressor room, and then all my equipment's in there. So actual working space is tiny. It's nothing. It's next to nothing. And I've been there. My plan was a 3 to 5 year plan. I was single. I lived at home when I opened the business. And I thought in 3 to 5 years, I'm going to scale this thing up like crazy. I'm going to do truck frames. I'm going to hire a bunch of people. Let's just take over the whole powder coating space in Southern Ontario where I am. I'm like, I'm going to take it all over. And then met my now partner, wife, whatever, had 2 kids. And then that dramatically changes that. So you kind of balance the time. And I had such a great childhood. My parents were always around. My dad worked like crazy, but I never remember him not being there for dinner. He was there at every dinner. He was always there. So
that's your priority.
Yeah. So family is priority. I always am home for dinner. I went through the 3-4 years of busting my ass, working 7 days a week, 14-hour days, 12-hour days on Sundays, just to scale the business. To grow, to put my name out there, to go to every car event, every car show. And then once, I met my partner, we had kids like right away.
Yeah.
So when we were pregnant with my second, I was kind of just getting really fed up of being at the shop. So equipment was just like kind of getting old. I just really wanted new stuff, and to kind of scale up. There's a few things I don't do in-house, which is any welding for curb rash, crack repairs, or bend repairs. So I figured I need those machines. I also wanted to start doing diamond cutting so I can do, single wheel repairs or anything like that, which goes hand in hand with the custom finish, because a lot of stuff, people want diamond cut lip.
Don't know if you know about how I started, but that's how I started, was doing wheel repair. So we did all of that. We fixed curb rash, we did bends, we did cracks, we did all of that.
Yeah. So I figured, it's time to just scale up. Like, let's just go for it. And I wanted to get a ceramic polisher. I wanted to do that because it goes hand in hand with what I'm doing. If I want to ceramic polish some wheels, do a candy red over it.
Yeah.
You need those machines instead of outsourcing it, which I outsource my polishing work as well. So I kind of got to the point where ready for the second kid was going to be born within, months. And there was actually a company, I didn't even know they were literally a stone's throw away. They were down the street. I could see their shop from my shop, but it was 2 guys that did this stuff on weekends and evenings, but they've been in business for like 5 or 6 years. So I was talking to him and I just said, come down to my shop, both of you. I just wanted to ask you something. So they came down to my shop and I said, I'm at the point where I'm ready to throw the towel in. I said, I want to hand you the key, but mind you, I rent this place. So I'd have to okay it with the landlord if he still wants this place being used for powder coat. So I kind of had to get some ducks in a row and make sure everything was cool before it kind of went down. But I basically said, I'm ready to throw in the towel. I want to leave everything here, even the mop in the corner. I want to take my palm sander and leave.
Yeah.
I would have left my gun there, oven, booth, you name it, everything.
Yeah.
I'm out. So it kind of worked out that they were ready to scale up as well, and they wanted to make sure they could support their 2 families doing this kind of stuff. So I had my kid, and right when I was about to message this guy and say, hey, like, my kid's born, I'm ready to like get going, he actually messaged me and said, bad news, stuff went down with my business partner. He wasn't paying rent and he was kind of stealing money and all this kind of stuff. So he's like, we're actually closing down. Do you want to buy any of our equipment? So I ended up buying their oven. So I have 2 ovens now.
Crazy.
Bought a bunch of just random little supplies from him. And once I got back from having my second kid, I had a completely different perspective on life and just what I wanted to do. And I was like, I want to work less and make it easier for myself, not hire 10 people, get a 6,000 square foot shop with quadruple the rent I'm paying now.
That wouldn't have been big enough anyways.
And then try take on more work. So when I got back, I just went, this is comfy cozy, man. I've got such a small little shop. Rent's good. Like, the landlord is like the greatest guy on the planet. Nobody bothers me because I'm like kind of out of town, like somewhat country, but like right out of town. So it's great. So I just went, I'm going to do less and make life easier for myself. A bunch of services and a bunch of stuff I just flat out don't do anymore. Yeah. And everything's just coming up Millhouse. It's great.
Do you see any with that? So like, I struggle with that myself. Like, we obviously have 4 full-time employees. We just hired another part-timer. So we're at 5 employees on payroll. That's the only way I could like get to that next plateau in the revenue.
Yeah.
Do you like, because you can only, or not that you can only work so many hours, but you've decided family's important. I'm only going to work so many hours.
Yeah.
Do you basically like, do you see, other than, price increases, that happen year after year, do you feel limited in that revenue then, or like, but are you just like, I'm good, like I'm making everything I need to take care of the family? Or the ambition to like grow is always there, even though I'm so frustrated hiring people and managing people.
Yeah. So yeah, my dad used to have 3 mechanic and transmission shops, and he had 20 employees or something like that. And one day he just went, I'm done, handed over the keys. So we're all originally from England. So my dad moved to Canada back in like the late 70s, early 80s, and he opened up these 3 businesses here in Canada. And stuff was kind of going a bit weird with, with all the business. And he just said, I'm done. Like, just dealing with employees and cut like 3 shops is insane.
Stressful.
And he threw in the keys and he moved back to England. He's just like, I'm done.
No kidding.
So he moved back to England, and then he met my mom, had me and my 2 brothers, and he's been self-employed. He's never had an employee ever since. And he's like, I'm just not dealing with that stress. I don't want to be in charge of somebody else and trying to keep them busy and overlooking everything they're doing.
Yeah.
So my dad was just he was an American car specialist in England. So
nice.
I've been around hot rods and drag racing. Well, like that's what we do. Is my dad's a drag racer. So I've been around drag racing cars, hot rods all the time. So that was kind of the norm. But anyway, so that's the biggest thing is he always said, just don't get employees. Don't do it. Yeah. You can do it. You can do it yourself. Don't deal with that stress. Don't deal with the extra cost of insurance and health and safety.
Oh, yeah. The costs go up so much. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. And it's just trying to keep someone busy. And basically the way I
then you're also responsible for their welfare. I mean, if you don't have work for them and hours for them, they can't buy food for their family. So
I just taken enough work. Yeah, I just taken enough work that I can handle. You
just kind of plan it out that way. Yeah.
And especially just the way my shop's set up is I couldn't blast and coat in the same day because of dust.
Yeah, you need it all settle out.
So the way I operate is I'll chemically strip and blast for, a few days, clean the shop, mask prep, tape, get the racks ready, and then I'll spend 2 days coating and then repeat. So I've got a good routine that I can do all of it myself.
Right.
Yeah. So
as those kids get older.
yeah, exactly. Well, 2 girls, if they're
I do too. I am making them work this summer. I've got a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I'm like, you guys can come in and sweep floors. And I go, they're getting spoiled. They don't understand like how hard I work and my employees work so that they have the life that they have. So I want to make sure. I grew up from the age of 12 working on a turkey farm. So like I was like, you're going to work, you're going to have a good work ethic. And I'm when you hire people nowadays, which you don't have to luckily deal with, they don't have that mentality. Like they just don't want to do it.
Or it's even just the drive for the business. So for example, like this wheel right behind me is a wheel that I refinished. Like this is a piece of artwork to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't have someone else do any part of that process.
Right.
I don't trust that they'll put the stickers on correctly. I don't trust they'll mask that lip to face off exactly how I need it to.
Right.
There's so many little details that go into the stuff I do that.
Yeah. I would definitely say you're more of an artist in the powder coating industry than just a coder.
So, I mean, you would never imagine, Vincent Van Gogh would be like, hey, you just base coat this picture and, you do the trees and I'll do the rest. Like you just couldn't imagine.
I'll draw the outlines, you paint them in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's like, I just kind of take this more as the artwork.
Yeah. Because and you definitely crank out some beautiful stuff.
Thank you.
You definitely do the stuff. Like if I could find you in Iowa to be like, here, you do our custom cool shit that I used to really like doing, but made no money at because I just wasn't that good and quick at it. You almost, if you could have a business that could do both, that'd be awesome. But
I've even thought about that too, because I decline so much work. So I pretty well don't do any OEM wheels. Like if you look at my page, I recently just did some Mustang wheels, but those are for like a really good customer of mine.
Yeah.
They were a nightmare. New Ford wheels
really
have the worst primer on them of any
Oh
wheel.
yeah, they're
The worst.
that European primer that won't come off.
So Ford all of a sudden has this and it's black. So I put these wheels through the chemical stripper 3 times. I B17, like that should have been off once.
Right.
So I
and then you start worrying about ruining the aluminum. And
yeah. So they're in the paint stripper for 4 hours. I take them out, wash them off. I let them sit. The next day they've dried out. I put them back. I did that 3 times. Wow. And I'm like, this is why I don't do factory wheels. Like it's
that's all we do. And we do like 10-year-old wheels with corrosion. I'm sure you're very familiar with all that up there.
Yeah.
And we do nothing but like new vehicles now because they don't want to pay the dealership price for a black wheel. And it's the quickest, easiest money I've ever made. Once you, do you have tire machines and all that?
No, nothing.
You don't do any of that work? Let's go through
your. I don't even have the space for it.
Yeah, that's true. What equipment? What are you using for equipment?
So I have a old Honeywell burn-off oven. I actually just realized the other week I was talking to someone about my oven, and I realized it's a burn-off oven. But I've never cranked it more than 420 degrees. Oh, but nice. It has the capability of going to 750 or something like that. I mean, I would never use it for you. Yeah, I'd never use it for
B17.
Yeah. So I've got 2 drums of B17, the typical U-line overpack drums. So I can do a set of wheels at once because typically you can only put 2 in at a time. So I got 2 of those, 2 barrels of B17. I have the Honeywell oven. It's a 5x5 by 6 feet, so it's big enough just to put 4 wheels in at a time. I don't really do any. I could fit truck bumpers in there and axles, but on an angle, and then you're worried about not heating the bottom corner up the best.
Right. Yep.
So I don't even do stuff like that anymore. I don't do axles. I don't do truck stuff. I just typically try to stick with wheels. But I have a bad boy blaster blast cabinet. I've got a pressure pot plumbed into that. I use aluminum oxide. And I have a Gamma Optiflex 2. So pretty standard.
Did you buy that new?
Yeah, brand new.
Okay.
2018, never had.
You're dating yourself there on that one.
Yeah. I started off with so when I worked at the other shop, they had an old Gamma. I don't even know when it was from, the 80s maybe. The thing was old. So I learned on like a pro gun. Right. And when I opened my shop, I couldn't afford anything. I bought a Eastwood dual voltage.
Oh yeah.
And I used that for about 8 months. Yeah. And I put out like show quality work, candy finishes, no issues. Yeah. Because I understood how powder is supposed to be applied and all the tricks to get it to stick and stuff like that, and the grounding. So I used an Eastwood and put out like the best quality work, around in the area at the time. Then I finally went up to a Spectra Koat ESO2. I will hands down praise that gun for the rest of my life and push that on everybody. It was such a good gun. Could do 3 coats, no problem with it. I had that thing dialed in. And then I remember specifically, I did 1 set of truck wheels that had really tight spokes and, really deep lug holes. And I did it in Illusion Purple. And it was the first time I ever used an Illusion color, or that color, Illusion Purple was the first time I used it. And of course the whole wheel looks white after clear. I pulled it out of the oven and there was light spots in every lug hole, every Faraday area, every corner. And just the cost and time to redo a set of either 24 by 14s, massive. So I ended up telling the customer, like, look, I cannot do this color again. Pick something else. So he picked a similar metallic color.
Yeah.
And the next week I was like, I'm buying a pro gun. This is it. I cannot do work like that anymore. So
it's the best upgrade you'll make in your shop.
Insane. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like they're always so worried about like the booth and the oven and all that stuff. And then they're like, well, I have no money for the gun, so I need like a $2,000 gun.
Yeah.
Like, exactly. Well, that's what's going to kill you in the long run.
Yeah.
So it's
a good thing you have all the, the expensive stripper to strip your mistakes.
Right. You got to redo it all and then deal with that. We got out of that B17 because when you're having employees, that whole trust thing, you got to make sure that they're wearing their PPE and all that. And it's like, I am not.
I got splashed yesterday. I'm an idiot. I had 4 little parts on a wire and I went to pull it out. And I'm like, why would I PPE up? I went to pull it out and it snagged somehow and the wire snapped. And when it snapped, it splashed me up in the face. I got right on my eyelid. On my face, my cheek, and my beard. And then I had to fish these 4 parts out for about 20 minutes in the sludge. I had to fix these like
because it all fell in.
Yeah, and I'm like, trying to do this while I'm like, eyes burning. So yeah, PPE is so important, but B17 is like the gnarliest stuff out there.
Not a joke. Yeah, not a joke.
Always, I've got splashes on my tattoos where like there's a bare spot.
Yeah, you got to go get them touched up and stuff.
Yeah, like it burnt through like my skin. Like,
yeah. I used to have the scar. I mean, they're probably still there, like on my legs, like in the summertime when I was wearing shorts. And it's like you'd even have like an apron on, but you'd have like your shins.
Well, exactly. Yeah, my arm. It's like I have gloves that go up to here,
your elbow. Yeah,
and then it's like just this little patch of skin. That's what gets burned, right?
Yeah, got it. I don't miss it. I know a lot of people are afraid to go to the eco stuff and green solve, but it's once you have the money,
space, or the power for it. I'm only single phase in my shop, and I've maxed out the panel, so I couldn't even get a heated tank if I.
True.
Yeah. So yeah, on top of all that equipment, I have my like spinner machine because I do brushing and polishing. I only polish wheel lips or center caps, but I have that little machine set to the side that I can do all my brush finishes on as well. So a little bit of equipment here and there, and I work.
So are wheels the biggest part of your business then, or is it just any custom part?
It's typically wheels, but I do all the 90s to like 2000s Japanese wheel like restorations. Like this back here is like from 95, I think. And then obviously like all the Volk, the Work, Enkis, like all that kind of high end race car stuff. That's what I show car wheels. That's my main gig. 3-piece wheels, and lots of valve covers, like tons and tons of valve covers, catch cans, intake manifolds, brakes.
Can you walk us through, and this is my favorite question to ask everyone because they all give the same answer, how you go about pricing jobs when they come into your shop?
Oh my God. I go to Right Now Powder Coat on YouTube, and then I look up price list, and then.
Did I send you a?
No, I've watched all your videos. I've watched every single one.
Okay. Well, we have like an Excel sheet. That like just kind of helps you plug stuff in.
Yeah. I kind of don't publicly talk about pricing just because.
Well, you don't have to share actual pricing, but if you were to walk us through, like mentally, say I brought you a set of like a 3-piece wheel, and we wanted 2 different colors with stencil work or whatever. So how would you go about that?
Because I've been doing this for about a decade, I typically have wheel faces are minimum this much. Wheel lips are this much. Wheel barrels are this much. I typically never, ever go by. I find this crazy. I see it all the time all over the powder coat groups when I talk to people. When people have a price list of 16-inch wheels, 17-inch, 18, 19, 20,
right,
and you have a price list, it's this much. I'm like, but what if that had a ton of damage and a ton of, that? So basically, I could price a 15-inch wheel the same as a 20 by 12.
Right.
Like, it depends the work that's involved. If there's tons of curb rash, masking procedures, if you're brushing something, two-toning something. So I pretty well have mentally it's minimum this much.
You start going to add on for whatever.
Yeah, so I'm just going to throw a random number out there. So it's like $100 a wheel face. If all of a sudden that wheel face is, a 15-inch BBS RS, which is a mesh wheel, you've got a center cap on there, like the center plate. You're masking off both sides of the wheel flange. You're going to do a candy color, Faraday area like crazy on those mesh wheels. So it's like the price is just going to increase. More masking procedures, crazy color. It's harder to get into those areas. You're masking threads in the middle. There's center caps involved. Whereas another wheel face, if it's just 5-spoke, you're masking one side of the flange. It's going in a standard just one coat. That's the $400. But you start adding. So it's like I don't have a recipe of like, if you're going to mask 2 flanges, that's an extra $20.
Right. You're more experienced. This is what I've learned from doing
it. Really comes down to like, if you do these wheels a million times, you're going to know that if you're going to do that wheel in candy red, the last time you charged that was this much money.
Right. And we're kind of like that too. We have base prices. Like this is where we're starting now. If you go choose a color that's $50 a pound.
Exactly.
You're gonna have certain. I go. This is for like our basic $5 a pound powders, and then we'll add on for the extra whatever color you choose.
So because being in Canada, if anyone wants a prismatic color, if I couldn't find the equivalent from my local supplier, Emerald Coatings. They're like an hour away from me, so I get shipping literally next day. If I order it at noon Monday morning, I have it at my door when I get to work Tuesday morning. So absolutely insane.
Yeah,
so if they don't have the equivalent of what somebody wants, or if there's a color somebody needs from Prismatic, I charge them full rate of that on top of my price.
Yeah.
Usually if it's from a local company, I just include the powder in the price of the quote. But if you want Prismatic, it's the time to order it. It's the shipping. It's the, you know, takes a week to get to me. Exchange rate, shipping, duties, tax.
Right.
You're paying on top of the already price I've given you.
Yeah, and we always had like a 30% margin on any of that stuff, because it's like, if I used to be an auto adjuster, and it's like, they don't make the fender, but they charge you a markup on the part and the labor to put the part on. So I'm like, if I'm reselling the powder, I should probably be making markup on it.
Yeah.
So.
It also I mean, not that I'm trying to deter anyone or take away from, you know, Prismatic and trying to get sales. Right. But if someone says, I want this color, I'm like, I could just get that from here.
Yeah.
Like, because people only just find Prismatic powders because it's
because they're a big site. Yeah.
So if a customer just looks up colors, they just send me a Prismatic link and they're like, I want this silver, and I'm like, I just can get that silver. You don't have to get through Prismatic.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure they're totally fine with that if you have a local.
Oh
store.
Yeah.
So especially if it's going to save that much money, but
absolutely.
We abuse Prismatic for custom just because to me it's so easy. Because they can go on the website, they can get samples. I'm like, I don't pick your color. I will never pick a color for a customer. You do that once as a powder coater, and you never do it again.
Oh yeah.
Have you had that?
Somewhat recently.
Yeah.
He's been a customer of mine since I worked at that other shop. He's a good friend of mine, and he gave me 2 turbos and an oil pan. I went, whatever. And I said, any limitations? He goes, do your thing. And I went, you know what? This guy always does his stuff in illusion purple or candy teal. And I was like, I'm going to do a really nice illusion red. Did these turbos, brushed the lettering. I brushed all the fins on the oil pan. I sent him a picture and he's like, dude, red. He's like, that's the one color. He's like, that's the one color I cannot get down with. And I'm like, you told me literally anything. Like, and he's like, let's just do it illusion purple. I'm like, oh my God.
Here you go, B17. Yeah. I get people that are like, black. I want black. I'm like, which one? Or like, I want red or yellow. And I'm like, I don't like even that simple. They're like, just like a red, like a fire truck red. I'm like, no, you need to pick the color. Like, I'm not redoing these for free because you don't like the color I picked.
Yeah. I have a lot of people. I get a lot of people leaning on me saying, like, what color would you do these? If these are yours, so it's always, what's your car? What's car color? Do you have any other color accents on your car? You know, I don't
even get baited into that because
I mean,
what I think looks good doesn't mean what you think.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm in like the show car world, right? So like people, that's actually where designs comes from in my name is
more of a designer too on it.
So it's like designing themes, like all the color of your car and what part. So that's what, before I started doing before I started powder coating, when I was doing my own like kind of Honda thing, is like I would match my wheel faces to the valve cover. I would then incorporate that into like maybe the shift knob. I would put polished here, there, you know, stuff like that. So it's like I was designing a theme for the car and it should look like this and that.
So that makes sense. I mean, I guess I didn't even realize. I knew it was designs, but tying that into
it used to be just this. It just used to be RORO Designs, and I was like, I don't know, powder coating, I guess.
Yeah, well, it helps with advertising, but it doesn't sound like you really need to do that. But that's why we went from Rimrite to right now powder is just to get more business.
Yeah, so that's kind of where it came from. So because people know I'm in the show car world, and you know, I have like a nice car myself, and people say it looks nice, which my car looks nice and it's themed well, and you know, there's nothing over the top. It's like everyone kind of goes for the less is more, unless you want to go like crazy loud, you know, neon colors or whatever. But you know, recently I've just done probably 12 sets of wheels within 2 weeks, all silver. I've got another like 6 or 7 sets to go silver.
Yeah, and you're bored out of your mind.
Is more, and you know, no more of this shouty color and stuff like that. So I got you know, people leaning on me saying, what color would you do? And then typically I can like tell them what color to do. Like guide. I don't want to say hoax them into this color, but is like, do this gunmetal. Like,
right.
Okay.
Yeah, you're gonna be happy with this. Yeah, I don't have.
Exactly.
I've learned I don't have it. It's funny because I apply powder and paint things, but I don't have that eye. Like I've got guys that bring me. There's a guy that owns a motorcycle shop.
Yeah.
And we've painted like his whole bike in either gloss black or neon pink, and it's the most loud, obnoxious bike in the world.
Oh God, yeah.
But that was his goal because he's like, I go to bike shows and I want them to know they can do this at my shop. So he brings them in, breaks them all down, and powder coats. And we've done like Illusion Purple on one too with gloss black, and it looks phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you look at your, like, you're looking under the hood or wherever, and you're like, these parts need to go black, these need to go purple, and I don't have that vision.
Yeah, that's what keeps me up at night. I'm actually doing that right now. Is I want to change the set of wheels on my car, and the options are endless. I'm like, do I go neon yellow? Do I just finally do something loud that stands out? But the rest of the car is so clean and monotone. I'm like, it's a bit too much, but it would be sick.
But you know a guy that could switch them back.
Well, I'm like, or I could just do lefts and rights.
Yeah, I've seen people do that. Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, maybe I can just do them flat black. But I could do a gloss black lip on them being a single piece wheel. I was like, I could do a two-tone, or I could do them Illusion Violet. That's what or Nardo Gray. They're silver now, so maybe change just slightly. But
well, you got to figure something out. Car season is right around the corner.
I know the car's still away in storage. Like,
do you still attend the shows and advertise? And do you have like the big pop-up tent and all?
No, I did that. I did that a couple times when I first opened. Not even one person feels like they can approach your booth and just like look at some samples or talk. I don't know. I did it a couple times and I was like, this was a complete waste of a day. It was a waste of buying tables, having making sure all these parts and obviously display wheels and valve covers just sit around in your shop collecting dust. And then I'm like, so I don't really advertise like at all. I post on Instagram, like maybe sometimes on TikTok, trying to get more into Facebook, but it's all just the same posting, just in different platforms, right?
Yeah. I've kind of moved more away from Facebook. Like I almost forget about it as like, oh yeah, I have a page there. I should update once.
Oh, that was me for you. That was me for years. And years.
I'm more on Instagram, but I don't. How many what's your following on Instagram? It's fairly large, isn't it?
Almost 9.5.
Yeah.
But so I used to have another account that was 14,000 back in 2018, and then my account got removed. And then I was like, oh no, 14,000 followers, chasing the number. And it's taken me now since 2018 to now to get 9.5. But I realized the numbers literally don't matter at all.
No.
If 9,000 of those people are in Indonesia,
they're
not your customers. They're just checking, it doesn't equate to sales.
Yeah.
I've never been busier and I have less followers than I did before. So like the Instagram number means.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think my channel, we're at like almost 16, and they're like, man, you must get so much business from that. I'm like, no, these people are learning powder coating. They're not sending me their parts.
Yeah, at all. Exactly. Yeah.
But it's cool to have a following, and you guys, you're actually doing like stuff people want to see, whereas like I could just show people the 1,000 brackets in satin black.
Yeah.
It gets pretty old, so it's so hard to be creative and come up with new.
Yeah, I find it really hard to do short form content. Like everything I've posted on TikTok is like 6 to 10 minutes or maybe even longer. And I'm like, how do you cut that down? So if you actually go to my Instagram and check out my Instagram reels, the one video is like 15 minutes. Like, I don't think people these days have the attention span for that, but I'm hoping you're laying in bed and you're, just glued to your phone and you decide to watch a 15-minute restoration video on a wheel.
Yeah. And I think there is some need for that because I get drug into the stupidest stuff on like, the reels. Like I'll be watching a guy like dig out for a patio and frame it up and pour concrete. Just like, it's stupid. I'm like, why have I been watching this for 20 minutes?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I get.
But now Facebook is breaking them up and throwing ads in there.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that? And the minute the ad comes, I swipe.
Oh, exactly.
Then
that's why I try to post that stuff all over so that the ads don't
just to see what works. And
yeah.
But no. So it's always shocking to me because I know like you do a lot of the custom wheels that Robert down in Texas does a shit ton. And I'm like, where are all these coming from? Do you have, Is your market pretty big up there? Like, are you having people from hundreds of miles away, or is this all local?
Yeah, so I'm from a town called Paris. It's a really small town, and I'm about 100 miles, maybe, well, 60 kilometers, so about 100 miles away from the Toronto area. So it's called the GTA. So that's all the surrounding cities around Toronto. I'd say 90% of my business is from there. Wow. So almost everybody's driving 2 hours to me.
Wow.
It's wild.
And and you don't do tire stuff, so they're having these all broke down and everything for you. Yeah, that's
awesome. because it's the show car guys, it's their second car, it's their multiple sets of wheels.
Right. You know? Oh, true.
So they're not out by any means to, I'm not out of vehicle. I'm not out for a week. Oh, I need a spare set of wheels. Oh, I sold my stocks. I have nothing else for rollers.
Do you see a little bit of seasonality to that business then? Because like when they're parked for the winter and they're breaking them down.
Oh, that's the busiest time.
Yeah. So what kind of work are you seeing now that we're getting into car show season in summer? Like, is it the same stuff?
It's the same stuff every day of the year.
Yeah. So it's just not as much per se. So you probably
we get 5 months of winter. So as soon as people take the cars off the road, some people jump on it right away. Mm-hmm. Like, so come October, November, I'm already slammed with work up until Christmas. Yeah. I'm getting a ton of wheel restoration stuff, and people are like, I just want to get ahead of it because I know you booked for months.
Right.
Come spring, I don't want to wait. I want the car done. Right. And then come springtime, everyone's like, oh no, I should get on it right now. So
and then they're like, give me in. And you're like, $30.
The same stuff always. Yeah. So you can see some seasonality, like obviously around Christmas, that's when everyone's spending money on presents. They don't want to spend it on car stuff.
Right.
But I'm still slammed with work. Like, you just see kind of less of it. And obviously, like I said, I don't do a lot of certain stuff like OEM wheels. If someone's like, oh, my brakes are rusty on my 2012 Tahoe, just kind of want to spruce them up, I'm like, you're not my customer. I don't take in the vehicle. I don't take the brakes off. You're not going to pay the price that I charge,
right?
Kind of thing. And then you're going to be out of your vehicle. So
I think that's a good tip for a lot of powder coaters, because I know when I first started, it was like any and all work that was available. I just wanted it.
That was me too.
Yeah, you got bills to pay. So
I took everything. Yeah.
I think the quicker you can learn your niche like you did and deny the other work, the happier you'll be in business, because you're only working on So
I had a local guy in Paris that thank God I found this guy. So a customer brought me a set of wheels and said they're already blasted. And I'm like, okay, of course, whoever says that, it's never good. But I'm like, bring them by anyway. Brought them by, and I'm like, this is perfect. This was the most perfect blast job I've ever seen in my life. Who did this?
Yeah.
He gave me the guy's contact info. He was like 5 minutes away from my shop, and he did like industrial blasting and mobile blasting.
Mm-hmm.
So I got hooked up with this guy, and he would come to my shop, pick stuff up, blast it, and drop it off within like days. So that's when I started taking in patio furniture, because my oven's big enough for it. Just my blast cabinet's not.
Right.
My blast cabinet's only a 3-foot cube.
Right.
So to fit anything more than 6 inches, I couldn't do it. So he would blast all my axles, blast all my lift kits for trucks, all my bumpers, like the big, what do they call, ranch bumpers or whatever.
Yeah.
He would blast all that stuff. He would blast, all my big stuff. Then I would coat it. So when I had my baby, or my, most recent, she's 3 now, but in that period of me getting ready to sell the shop, when I came back, I messaged him and said, hey, I've got a ton of stuff here. I actually took a full lift kit, all these fender flares, all these rock sliders for this Jeep. And I said, hey, I've got all this stuff here ready for you. I'm back. And he called me. He's like, hey, while you were away, because I took a month off while I was having the baby. He's like, in that month, I sold my business and I've moved up north. I'm like, I'm gone.
Jeez.
And I'm like, no, dude, I have the customer's work here. So I had to call the customer and say, like, hey, sorry, my blast guy retired. Come pick it up.
Yeah.
I can't do it anymore.
Did you not want to work with the new guy who bought it, or did they just stop doing it?
No, I think so he had a mobile blasting. So he would like take graffiti off schools and like stuff like that. He just had the ability because
So the guy bought the equipment and left.
Yeah, he bought the truck and the tow behind
It wasn't someone local.
Yeah. So this guy had a farm, so he would blast like at his farm outdoors.
Nice. Yeah.
And then this guy bought his, graffiti removal business. So he's like, "Yep, we're done." So luckily, that pushed me in the direction of, okay, so don't take all that big stuff anymore, because I hated doing it anyway. Yeah. I just did it because I could do it.
Right.
The amount of time it took to do a full lift. So because my oven's only so big,
right,
I could
run so many parts. Yeah.
I would do one axle at a time. So I have 2 racks that I alternate. If I was to do 2 axles in a 3-stage, zinc primer, base clear, I'm 6 oven runs, and the time to heat up, the time to cool down in between, I'm like, it's a full day to do 2 axles. Mm-hmm. It's like, it just doesn't make sense. And then you got to do all the track bars. You got to do all the, everything else. The springs. It just took way too long. And same thing, a bumper going 3-stage. It's like, it's your entire day.
Yeah. That's I think it's overlooked a lot too, is how many times you have to run your parts through the oven and how much time. So and if you only have one oven, you're tying that thing up and can't do anything else.
So once he was done, I was like, good, anything I cannot fit in my blast cabinet, I will not take on.
Yeah.
I'm not middlemaning I'm not running all over town to get this sandblasted and run it back. It was convenient that he would pick it up and drop it off. I didn't have to close my shop down or go anywhere.
Right.
So that's when I kind of reeled in. I'm gonna stop doing all this big stuff. Anything I cannot blast, I won't do. And then that's when the wheel thing started, where I was like, OEM wheels are a nightmare. I don't need a set of German wheels taking up my entire day in the paint stripper, when, a set of wheels like this would take me 10 minutes. And my shop's full of wheels like this. So I'm like, why do I keep taking OEM wheels that people want black? It's boring compared to this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I just said, like, no more OEM wheels. I don't do motorcycle frames. I don't do bicycle frames anymore. Just the chemical stripper and sandblasting media getting stuck in tubes of bikes. I'm like, I'm done. No more. It's so cheap. I do like a bike frame for like $150.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you're like, you've lost a gallon of media inside the tubes all over the floor. I'm like, it's just...
I have not had that problem. We do a lot of motorcycle frames.
Yeah, it's more bicycle frames. Like, that was the worst. Yeah, bicycle frames are the worst of that. So I just stopped doing it. So I did do a bunch of batch work as well. Like, kind of, I guess you'll call it batch work. All those customers I fired.
Yeah.
I just said, like, I'm not doing that anymore. I don't want to, when I've got when it's wheel season and I've got all these, wheels to brush and polish, and all of a sudden you need these 500 brackets doing.
Right.
I'm like, it's not worth the time to do that.
I think every coder, though, like, if you've been doing it long enough, you'll have that part of your business where it's like you have to pick a route almost. Because we were there. I mean, we were doing tons of custom stuff, but I just felt like the money was in that production work. And
production afterward,
yeah. So like, we do. What's that?
To me, it was the opposite.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think you have to pick a route, though, which way. And I miss, like, the stuff you do is so much more, like, rewarding, and it's more fun to do, and it's creative, and it looks better on social media. But once I got my conveyor system, like, man, I can crank out thousands a day, and it's a lot less labor intensive because you're hanging a part. It does everything. You got a painter putting paint on it. And you just see, I call it print money as it comes out of
And
it's so nice to see, but it does not have near the rewarding effect of, like, your stuff. And then you're out at car shows, and the pride, like, when I see my stuff out in the elements, like, we do some signs and stuff that are on buildings, or like artwork stuff for people. And it's shit, I did that 5 years ago, and that's still sitting out there looking good. It's
I mean, I don't go to many car shows, really. There's like a few I do, but like, I just don't quite have the time. Like, just being, having 2 young kids to just be like, I'm going to go look at some cars that I saw on Instagram anyway.
Right.
I just,
have you ever been down
I'm like, I kind of want to put my car in some car shows just because, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. I modify my cars for me, and I like them for me. And
yeah, I'm just a big car guy, so I enjoy looking at them. But
yeah.
So it's not really for biz. I've never advertised at businesses because they had like an Iowa Auto Car Show. It's kind of like the Chicago Auto Car Show. You know, it's like they bring all the new cars, and I had a table there, and like we got zero business from it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
The people looking at brand new cars don't really give a crap about that.
Yeah, they're like, I'll just order black wheels from the factory.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that's one of our biggest ways of getting wheels with the Chevy dealership we work with. They just go into accessories, and they're like, we want those to be black, and they're like, well, we could powder coat those, or you could spend $2,000 on a new set from GM per wheel. And they're like, yeah, let's coat them. So like we do at least one a week with them, brand new. They just work it into the deal. So
yeah,
it's crazy because I'm sure you've seen the black with machine faces.
Yeah.
They're taking those off and just painting them 100% black. It's the funniest thing.
Oh, I know, right? Yeah, I like same thing. I went through that whole thing. Dealership, like I've got tons of dealerships around me, like not even 10 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
And they all reach out, hey, can you offer these packages? And I'm like, no. Like you want it back the next day? I'm already booked for 6 weeks.
Right.
Nope.
Yeah.
Like just not interested. Because then it almost, I've kind of done stuff like that, and I find that they almost act like you're their employee. Like they almost take some control over your business. And I'm like, absolutely not. Like I'm giving you the timeline. I'm giving you, I'm running this show. Like I don't care if you promised the customer 3 days ago and you're behind.
Right.
Don't put that on me. Like
I do get that a lot with even just retail customers. So like they had like probably for you, like when you get a call in April and they're like, got a car show next month, you need to get me in. You're like, no, that's not my problem. But you set that timeline. You forgot to get booked and all that. So I definitely hate when that happens.
I kind of work on the whole like philosophy of like, if you have a deadline, I'm not even going to take in your work. I'm not going to promise you anything on a deadline. I ask a lot of customers that when they say like, what's your turnaround time right now? I'm like, well, do you have a deadline or a date you need these for? Right. And if they say no, I'm like, good. If they say like, yeah, I need them by this, I'm like, oh,
yeah,
I don't know, man. That's like,
it always falls on the painter. Like and we do a lot of like fabricated parts. It's like you gave that guy like 2 months to fabricate this crap, and now you're giving me 2 days to paint it with no.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, same thing. I had another industrial company. They did all the blasting. They'd be like, we need this coated tomorrow, and I'm like,
there's another guy that way.
I'm like, I'm not even firing up my oven tomorrow. Like,
yeah. Do you have any other coders in the area? Like, what's your competition?
Oh, hundreds, dude.
Really? So, do you work with any of those guys though? Like, if you had, you recommend any of them to other people that you're like, I can't do that, but call this guy?
Yeah. So the shop I used to work for is probably a 20-minute drive from my shop. And then there's another shop that opened up. They're probably 20 minutes from them. We're kind of in a triangle. So we're all kind of like 30 minutes drive of each other. And we all pretty well do the exact same things.
Yeah.
And then up kind of scattered around, there's a lot of like little shops and stuff like that. Some industrial shops who will touch custom stuff. But obviously an industrial coder doing custom stuff usually isn't the best end result, especially when you're comparing to like, they're not going to polish. They'll probably tell you, get it polished first. There'll be crap all over the polish after it's done. And then up in the GTA is like insane. So an hour away where all my business comes from, there's probably, I could probably pinpoint you 50 shops. Wow. And same thing. They like kind of dabble in like, I wouldn't say like custom stuff. Like I don't really see many people doing like the polished and brushed two tones and like multi-piece wheels. I'm sure they like take it on. But it's like, it's not their specialty. Their specialty is wheel repair, blackouts, OEM, like hyper silvers and stuff like that. Yeah. So there's a few shops I do recommend that I work closely with to do, certain ceramic polishing or anyone that comes to me that says, I need my wheels blacked out. I'm like, that guy, like this guy does all the OEM wheels, not me.
Yeah.
So I don't really work. Everyone's obviously competition.
Yeah.
But when you have your niche and you're not stepping on toes with someone else, I'll happily recommend them to do what you're looking for if that's their niche.
Right.
I have no problem,
Yeah. I recommend people all the time, especially like we have a 12-foot oven. So like if you're 12 foot or more, we ain't doing it.
Yeah,
but there's a guy
exactly.
25 minutes away that's got a 20-foot oven. So go up there. I send him work all the time. I like to ask powder coaters that because they're always business people. And they're always like, oh, competition. I'm like, yeah, but if you work with your competition, there's always chances you could help them or they could help you. Especially, I mean, you're not necessarily looking for the work, but you never know when like you may need, oh shit, I told this guy I would do a gloss white and I don't have any, but that guy I'm buddies with, he could sell me some type of deal.
So the way I kind of look at it is whenever I always have like a recipe of when I talk to a customer. So when they reach out and say, hey, I just want my wheels blacked out, I'm like, hey, thanks for the inquiry. Unfortunately, I don't do wheel blackouts or any OEM wheels. I specialize in aftermarket wheels, but where are you located? I could happily recommend you a shop who could do that for you.
Yeah.
Then they say, oh, I'm in this area. And I'm like, the closest person is either this person or this person.
Right.
And they're like, thank you so much. I'm like, have a great day.
Yeah.
If you're helpful, if you're helpful and they, appreciate the recommendation, you're not like, no, I don't do it. And don't even say bye, just leave them on red.
Right.
If they get some aftermarket wheels, they'll probably think of you. If they have another project, not wheels, they'll probably think of you. So it's like, you always just want to keep the line open of like, I don't do it. Thanks for reaching out, but let me help you anyway.
Right.
So
yeah,
that's a good takeaway for anyone else.
I do very similar to that with my spiel, but then I always tell them right now, powder coating sent you.
That
way that guy knows. Like,
I say that too. Yeah,
because it's like I want him to understand I'm not looking at him like he's stealing customers, but I'm actually sending him that way. If anything happened on his side and he needed me to help out, reaching out. So
no one sends me work.
I never once have I got it from anyone else either.
No, not at all. Yeah,
maybe one day. I think they're just, again, it's at like their competition. I don't want them to know who I'm working with, and it's like half of you, the people that come to me after going to another coater, it's because their paint failed, they had rust or whatever. And you're like, yep. And then like, okay, they're probably not doing the process like they should be. So I'm not, like, not to send work that way. Yeah. So we're kind of getting close to our wrap up here. What advice would you give to like a new coater? So a lot of people that watch my channel, they're newbies, they're running the Eastwood guns. Like if you could go back in time, like the quickest way to learn, grow, upgrade equipment, like what do you got for tips or advice on that?
I mean, my whole thing was like I did research nonstop. Like I was always researching every shop in the area. This is when I even worked at the other shop, is I looked at what everybody else was doing. I zoom in on everything. Zoom in on the entire lip of a wheel. Is there any curb brush still on there? Zoom in on the back pad. Zoom in on the center bore. Zoom in on Faraday areas. I'm always checking everyone's work. Oh, that's acceptable for them to send out. Okay, well, I'll make sure that I'm just one better than that. This is funny. I was even thinking about this last night. I was like, what questions would you be asking, based on the other stuff I was watching? Even about 5 years into me having my own shop, I didn't even know what BI was. I had no idea what back ionization was at all. And then all of a sudden,
that's good. It means you never had to deal with it.
Well, yeah, exactly. Which I do now with the Gamma gun, which is weird. I got to dial
more power. They got more power.
Yeah. So it's just do the research. Like, don't think this is just spray it on a part and put it in the oven. It's
definitely not as easy as we all make it look, right?
Like in some of these groups, you see, my biggest thing is like you see someone post what happened here. It's clearly outgassing, and you have 50 answers that are wrong. Like powder coating is a science. It's not a dead-on science because there's so many variables. But when issues like that arise, it's obvious what it is, and it's only that because of these reasons. So when it's outgassing, there should literally be no other answer. It should be outgassing and that's it, because that's what it is. Yeah. So when people say, oh, oil in your compressor, that's not what it looks like.
I see a lot of profile too. It's your profile.
Yeah. There's so it's like really do your research and like use the search function on these pages. Don't ask the question, search it. You will see a million of the same, picture. What is this? And the answer is there in the comments. Like, do the research. Don't make all the posts. Research day in and day out. For example, right before we started this podcast, I was literally watching your other podcast. I am watching anything powder coat related all the time. I'm watching what everyone else is doing, and I'm trying to just, that person didn't mask that off. They should have, but they didn't. Yeah. So it's always just, as well as customer service has to be top priority. Don't have an ego. Stand your ground. If someone's going to argue with you about some BS, stand your ground. Like when I first opened, it's probably a couple years in, I had a customer come and he's like, my son wants to, pick the color of these wheels. It's a satin gray. So I showed him some samples in the shop and I said, this is the color you want, but this is a matte finish, zero gloss. And he's like, no, we want some gloss to it. We do not want that. We don't want it to look chalky or whatever. So I did the wheels. The guy picked them up and he's like, these look amazing. Great job. Did it in the satin clear he wanted. He got home the next day. He's like, hey, my son kind of doesn't like these wheels. He says they're a bit too shiny. Can we go ahead and redo them in the matte finish? And I'm like, the matte finish you said you didn't want that I showed you? And he's like, yeah, that one. I was like, no problem. It would be, and it gave him the price. Like, it would be the price to redo them. He's like, why wouldn't that be free? And I'm like, why would it be free? You specifically didn't want that color. You picked this. You left happy. Just because your son all of a sudden, who's 13, says, oh, that's not really what I was looking at.
Right.
So that guy argued, I'll make sure you get no business ever again. And I'm like, dude, I don't care. Like, you didn't want that color. It's documented on a work order. It's documented
that can be a scary thing for a new powder coater when a customer does. So I'm glad you said that, though, because it's never been brought up that I know of on my channel. Hold your ground on that stuff, because they don't know as many people as they think they know, and those people don't care. Like, I had one guy where we did hit the lip on his wheel, and the guy who he was going to have polish and ceramic coat it wouldn't do it because he didn't know how deep the paint was. And I'm like, that's not my problem. And he's like, no, you need to strip these and redo. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. He's like, you aren't getting any business from me again. And I know all the people in the trucking industry that do the lip to trucks. I'm like, dude, I don't care. Do not care.
The people who act like that think they have more power than they do.
He thought I'd be out of business.
They don't have the power to shut your business down.
Yeah, he thought I'd be out of business.
They're just going to throw in a hissy fit. Yep. You're okay with a bad review as long as you handle it. Like, if you get a bad review, you can post screenshots and go, based on our interaction, you specifically didn't want this color. Right. I did what you asked and you were happy with it. Only later on you decided to change the color. That's on you. That's not on me. Like, as long as you get a Google, if you get a bad Google review, follow up with something positive or helpful, and people will see that you're willing to help, but it's them that are being difficult.
Right.
So don't shy away. But there's also instances where if there's an issue, I am going to jump on it. That wheel is first in line to get refinished.
Right.
If there's a Faraday area I missed, or, there's just something weird going on, or the wheel cracks because it got uncured, I'm like, bring it in. I'm sorry you have to get tires on and off. I will get these refinished within the week. Like, sorry, jump on it. And just
take care of them.
Take care of it.
If it's on you, take care of it.
Yeah.
And if it's not on you, still try to keep the temperament low, because usually things can stay peaceful if emotions don't get too high.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Which it can be hard to do, because especially when this is your artwork and it's like, I love the people that are like, my paint's flaking off on my wheels. And I'm like, that's weird. I've been doing this for like 8 years and never had that happen once. And they send you a picture and they hit a curb.
Oh yeah. Exactly. It's like, you need to be educational. Like, they need to understand the process.
Yeah. And I think being in business, the longer you're in business, you can forewarn them, like, this is paint. You rub it against a curb, it's going to come off. Like, this isn't indestructible. So all right, man. Well, I think we'll wrap up. I won't take any more of your time. We weren't bothered by your dogs. You were a little bit worried about that.
No.
It's probably going to happen like right now. But I really do appreciate you coming on. I know you're super busy, and
thanks for having me, man.
You've been on the podcast with Kim.
Yeah, I'm going to do that
later today, which won't mean anything when I post this next week.
Yeah.
Do you want to plug that at all, or talk about that? Because it sounds like it's something she's doing an ongoing thing with.
So we want to talk about on Maui Powderworks podcast is we're getting a bunch of people in the industry, you included, is we're seeing a massive shift in people helping the industry. So for example, like you have the YouTube channel, I started a Patreon page for help. There's, tons of people doing stuff for the industry to help everyone evolve. So we're kind of just sitting around having a group discussion of where we think this should go, the industry, and who is doing what to help the industry, to kind of, put a spotlight on the people helping, and what's not really working. Certain groups might not work. Some stuff people are trying to advertise or do might not be working. And, there's no influencers in this space. So people who are, working with companies and getting that kind of rolling is helping companies. It's helping the industry. It's, so there's a big shift happening. So we're going to sit around and do that.
Yep. No, I think it's awesome. I watched your first one. I think I was like one of the few live people on it.
Yeah. So. We've been meaning to do another one, but just everyone's so busy.
Yep. So, and then I'm going to link your social media down below. And if you want to put that Patreon on there too, I think you teach classes, correct?
Yeah, so I have a bunch of courses. It's like online learning courses, so you can literally just watch an entire instructional video start to finish, as well as a subscription-based, monthly. It's got a group chat in there, and it's help and support one-on-one from me, from other people in the industry, and I post tons of content on there, tutorials, and it's kind of like what you're doing. It's like a very specific tricks and tips, and
right.
I get like so in depth and like very specific to stuff like this. Like
I saw a clip you shared, I think on social media. It was like a little clip of one of the training.
Yeah, it's like hanging the brakes or like doing something. It's like even just the way to hang something up because of this.
Right,
like,
hook marks and where it's
hook marks or like plugs falling out. Like it. I just like deep dive into tons of stuff, even like social media, how to like present your page and how to make posts and hashtags and kind of every avenue of the business, how to just scale it up, look more professional, get more work. How to
I think that's a great use of Patreon. I have one. I suck at it. I just help people. Like I'm like, just subscribe. You can ask me any question you want.
Yeah.
And I've got like 20, 30 people on there and they never ask questions. I'm like, just ask me questions. Like that's why this is here. Cause I get so many emails and text messages and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know who you are. I'm not like, if I just did that nonstop for people that didn't subscribe or whatever.
I spent years having more coders reach out to me than I would customers. I'd spend more time helping people. And it got
How'd you do that? What was your trick? Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm spending more time and money, or a lot of time is money, helping people out than I'm doing customer work. Like this is insane. So that's what kind of triggered the idea of like, if I just do a bunch of videos that show everything everyone's asking me,
just send them there.
Go do that. Yeah. So it's slowly rolling out. I've like really not pushed it that hard and advertised it. I don't want to look like a slimy salesman being like, go check all that stuff. It's like,
well, see, that's the tough part. Cause you're like, I'm already sharing this information for free. And now I'm asking people to go and like pay for it. But when you really think about it, your time, your knowledge, your energy that you put into all that, it's worth something. And most of these, the people that want that information from someone who's putting out the kind of work you are, they should be willing to pay for it. And
and it's more so like when I first started coding, there was no Facebook group. People wouldn't even talk to each other on social media. If you message another coder, they're not answering you. They're not helping you in any way. Like if I had a problem, I'm like, I just had to figure it out. There was no support whatsoever. So
it's now changed a lot in the last 15
so
years.
now that I'm, the industry's at the point it's at, there's information everywhere, but there's no one place for all the information.
All of it,
If like, for example, like if you search the group and search, the whole thing about the outgassing, there's 50 people saying it's oil, it's your blast profile. The answer is out there, but you have to filter it so much. And then
because there's so much bad answers on one.
What do you believe from who's credible enough to answer this?
Right.
So it's like, I'm trying to put all the information out there, like, from a guy who, has done every mess up possible. I figured it all out myself. And especially just like, how to be efficient as one person, how to, you know, do certain parts of the process to be the most efficient, to save supplies, to save time, save money, ultimately be a more profitable business. So I kind of cover everything on the Patreon.
Yeah. So no, I think that's awesome. We'll link all that stuff below, but I'm going to let you get going because we're over an hour now. But we look forward to seeing more of your work and all that on there. And again, check out the notes below because we'll have all of his info down there so you can go follow him. So again, thanks for coming on, man. I really do appreciate it.